Richard Corbridge, thank you so much for joining me on the AI6 podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. Good to see you.
Well, listen, we're going to talk about AI, but you've been around the CIO houses for many years, both in Ireland and in the UK, and you've won CIO of the Year many times. But first of all, we go way back, but introduce yourself to the listeners and to the viewers.
Will do. So, hi everybody, Richard Corbridge. I'm the CIO of a company in the UK and Europe called Segro, which is a company that looks after light industry buildings, logistics buildings across the whole of UK and Europe. But prior to that, Director General of Digital for the Department of Work and Pensions, the UK's biggest civil department, and prior to that at Boots and Healthcare, including the HSE in Ireland.
That's right, and that's where we met, and I was CIO for a day. It's about a decade ago now, Richard. But you know what? You were always innovating and always felt that you were ahead of the curve. How has the role of a CIO changed in now where we are in the age of AI?
I think it's just continued to evolve, and we were talking to a bunch of CIOs last week actually about how where we are now in 2025 is probably the most exciting I've known it for at least 10 years from the point of view of the art of the possible, but also from that evolution of the role itself. So our ability as CIOs, as digital leaders in almost any organization, we've become so much more intrinsic to the future, the transformation, the capability of organizations. And I think we're getting that empowerment, that seat at the table, that trust from our organizations, so much more than we've ever had before, because I think it's down to the consumerization of what AI means. When my mum knows what AI is, when my kids are talking to me about AI, at that point, I really do realize that what we're doing is it's here to stay. It's not a new idea. It's becoming part of everybody's way of working.
And so you mentioned there that, potentially IT teams and CIOs will have more input, leverage, maybe impact or direction where we are now. But whose responsibility ultimately in an organization is AI?
That's a good question. I would say, please don't go and recruit a chief AI officer right now. I think that flag bearer moment will not be successful. I think if we end up creating a silo for AI to exist in its own right, then that won't be the right place for it to be. As a CIO and one that loves the idea of what we're doing, I obviously will say that I want responsibility of it. I think where organizations have got mature digital transformation capability, it would be better that it was hosted there, because it needs to be problem-led, business-led, not shiny thing-led. And I think we're seeing that a little bit in UK government at the moment, is how many AI things can I have and where's my AI strategy, rather than what can AI help solve the problems of. And I think we've got to get closer to what are the wicked problems that have always been there, and can this new tech that is easier to understand, has a natural language capability, help fix it, and then wrap the right governance around it. Because as exciting and easy consumable to use and get at as AI is, the risks I think that come with it are not insignificant as well.
And what are some of those risks that you're thinking about in your organization?
I think from us, we want to empower people to have a go. We want to empower people to be that innovator because they've seen something they want to do themselves. We've got to be super careful with where the data is leaking to. We've got to know and understand that if we're empowering a machine to make decisions, or at least strong reference points in natural language, and therefore they become more trustworthy, how do we give it the oversight that we would if we were asking an expert the same thing? I know we've seen a lot of really, really amazing solutions that have been done and built somewhat hobbyist in our organization at the moment. We've now got a wrapper around that allows us to test and make sure they're robust enough for a corporate organization, not a really cool test and learn solution. But we can do that. We can do that as long as we know. I think the risk of, we had shadow IT, we're heading, I think, into a place where shadow AI is going to happen. And how do I protect my exec, my board, from things that must not happen to a big corporate with data that out in the wild would be dangerous? But also making the wrong decisions because we've not understood, we've not had explainable AI from the beginning. Something I have seen the UK government do really well is insist on this explainable AI framework. Everything must be explainable. You can't just plug a black box in and accept the answer that gets spat out the other end, which I think is really powerful.
And so you mentioned that you were kind of experimenting, and of course, you've got to design by need and have that business case. Do you envisage that you will, create AI solutions in-house or kind of in-source them in? Because a lot of the technology is going to be open source also.
So I think it's going to be problem by problem. What I would hope we don't do is start writing our own language models, etc., which just feels like wasteful from a sustainability point of view, from a timing point of view. There are so many amazing organizations to work with and partner with out there. I think each time we need to go after a solution, we need to decide which way we want to go after it. I think there's something now about AI is another very useful, very big part of my toolbox of things I can deploy to try and create a more efficient, more productive, more accurate organization. And therefore, we apply the same logic we've been applying to all things, whether it's RPA or cloud migration or data modernization. AI needs to be thought of in the same way.
And so, are there any use cases that you've come across, even in private or public sector, that kind of excite you, that just shows the opportunity and how it can advance sectors?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, we're seeing, it feels like something every week gets told, a story over a network of CIOs or other digital leaders. So I think one of the things that I was so excited about in my previous role was the ability for us to use artificial intelligence to read handwritten notes, of which there were 22,000 a day coming into the DWP, be able to spot the people that were most at risk, effectively prioritize the most vulnerable people, and point a human at talking to them to save lives from depression, from suicidal tendencies because of the situations they found themselves in. In my organization now, the most exciting I'm seeing is around how do we use AI to offer an interface to complex documentation to allow any colleague to ask questions in a natural language way in their own geographic language and get answers more appropriate to them. So, my digital strategy being live across the whole of continental Europe and the UK, I can create a tool that allows an asset manager in Germany, whose first language naturally is German, to ask questions of what's in my digital strategy and get that back to them in ways that they can understand. Just that engagement capability of what we're seeing because of stuff like that is phenomenal.
So obviously you're a tech first professional. The AI and the language, the capabilities, the technology, it's what you live and breathe and have been. But how are you convincing reluctant leaders or departments who come to you first with their fears and don't see the opportunity? What's that moment of knowledge transfer that you're giving to help soothe their fears or take them away?
I like that, soothe their fears. I think in the last 12 months, though, we're starting to see that get less prevalent. So 12, 18 months ago, we were, there was a lot of talk of a framework around why you couldn't use AI. As I look at some of the documentation coming out of our industry now and government as well, it's more about how do we make sure that we safely moved forward with AI together. It is back to some of those same principles, though, around let's start with the problem and start with the human. So sitting down with somebody who has a problem, helping them understand how technology could fix that problem, then helping them understand what technology deployed where, and then going on that test and learn journey with them, so that we don't want to go away and then come back in 6 weeks with a solution deployed over the top of them that scares them, because they'll just stop using it. There's all sorts of stories around AI being used in the American ex-army officers pension fund system, where the people that were actually employed to read the letters were hiding letters so that AI couldn't read it because they were so scared that AI was going to take their jobs, and that side of sort of the fear factor around there. I think what we're seeing more and more is people accepting that AI is going to help take the drudgery away from jobs, free them up to be able to do things that humans are best at doing, that empathy, that ability to have conversations, the ability to truly be there for each human, as opposed to, you know, the Excel monkey job of just moving numbers around an Excel spreadsheet to get a report at the end. That's perfect for us to start to automate, whether that's with AI or RPA or however we do that. That's, I think, the sales pitch is in the heart of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, always connect with a human at an emotional level, and
Yeah.
they'll hear you out. So I'm fascinated by how different countries around the world are setting themselves up for AI success and developing AI economies, like from China to the US. The UK, Sir Keir Starmer wants to have their own equivalent of open AI. The EU wants digital services to be available across public sector by 2030, like exclusively. So there's some big ambitions being set out there, but part of me thinks they're a bit too ambitious when kind of the Joe soap are just kind of getting used to the likes of ChatGPT being part of our normal day. It's going to change economies. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we've got to get to the point where we understand the pace of change is never going to slow down now. This is something that, even if you think back the 18 months, 24 months of ChatGPT, the tools now that everybody can put on their mobile phone and start to use, the way that, you know, my 16-year-old stepson is using it to do different things, to help him with studies, to help him be more capable at the work he's doing. I find it absolutely fascinating. The economy side of it is almost just going to be impacted regardless of the citizen doing the stuff they want to do. I think we've got to find a way, though, to, and maybe for the first time, really, find a way to be as transparent and sharing as we possibly can, so that there is a risk that we all individually go and build the same things and spend time, effort, money that doesn't exist in the system anymore, duplicating that effort. When in fact, if you've solved a problem, there's a high chance that there's somebody else is looking to solve that problem. How do we get a lot less selfish than we've ever been before in the way we deploy technology? I'm not suggesting we open up and remove the competitive nature of organizations that are in competition with each other. But wherever possible, whether it's government or private sector, things that we've done that are shareable, we should try and find ways to do that. Whether that's safety networks for the use of AI, strategy for engagement in AI. I think there's something really powerful about us trying much harder than we've ever tried before to become a more sharing sector, really, from a digital point of view.
So let's talk about agentic AI and those autonomous multimodals that can. It's almost like having 2 or 3 people working beside you and independently. Are you seeing that yet in your organization, or how fast do you think that's going to become mainstream also?
So we're not seeing it yet in our organization in the same way as others are, I guess, but we are, the property sector, the industry I'm in, is a little bit further behind in what it does around digitization and that transformation agenda. I do think we're in a place where using agents to do some of the laborious, repeatable tasks is something that we will definitely move down the road of. And then connecting those up, it feels like, is the way that we'll start to create accuracy and create efficiency that we've never seen before, and free people up to do better roles. I think we have to be mindful, though, of that productivity leakage. The business case for some of the AI capability that organizations are creating professes to save, many hours, many whole-time equivalents. But actually, when you talk to others that are further ahead than we are, what they've actually done is save maybe half an hour a day of one person. And that half an hour a day is very quickly being eaten up with stuff. And we've got to work out what the value is then of giving somebody half an hour back a day to do things is only really value if the thing they choose to do adds value to the organization or the customer. Where in reality, what many organizations are seeing now is it means that somebody's getting an extra cup of tea or not having to run from meeting A to meeting B, which has massive benefit to the workforce, to your own, health and well-being. But actually the business case of let's reduce our headcount by X whole-time equivalents just isn't really coming to the forefront yet, as far as I can see.
Are you in the school of thought that says that all of us, no matter what industry or what stage of our career that we're in, we have to be AI literate and embrace it without pushback?
Definitely. I think one of the things that we did in my previous role was start to work out what would it be like to give people prompt engineering training and capability to the point where they could actually, put it on their CV, put it on their LinkedIn that as a work coach, I'm trained in how to prompt engineer. We thought that was a super powerful thing to go after. We didn't get it over the line quite, but the thinking was there on how do we train people in what prompt engineering is. I was at an event last week where a person was literally complaining that her child was being taught another language instead of what is AI, which I thought was fascinating, that we're already in a place where people are saying, at what age do we teach people the art of artificial intelligence? I think there's something interesting in that as to what do you actually teach? Because is it the principles of where did AI come from in its history? Is it how to prompt engineer? Is it how to build a large language model? It's a very big subject to say I'm going to try and educate people in AI. I think it's unpacking that. It's a bit like saying I'm going to teach somebody digital. What does that actually mean?
And you mentioned your 16-year-old stepson, and my son is almost 16, and he's already saying to me, what job should I do? And honestly, I mean, for me, it's like you probably will be working in some area where AI is dominant, and I don't know what that is, but where do you think the next cohort of interns or graduates, what are they going to be doing in your organization?
Oh, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, the interest there is straight away, isn't it? How can I apply new technology to the things that we do, whether that's deciding where we need to buy land that's going to be the most useful for our customers, the type of buildings we're going to build, the investment schedules, the safety, predicting sustainability through our buildings. All of that can be augmented through the use of AI and be more efficiently created, more accurately done. And I think that's really is exciting, because that's when we start to, imagine cutting out the mistakes that can be made, or imagine being that much faster at getting to the answer, comparing another organization's capabilities with your own, and finding that niche for us is something that's really important.
One other argument that's made against AI is we or some people, or maybe the generation coming up through school, are going to lose the ability to have critical thinking or to think for themselves. There's this notion that AI is going to do everything for you, and then what's left for the human?
I do disagree with that, because I think that there's sort of the ability to do prompt engineering, to know the right questions to ask, to add the human nature, the thoughtfulness, the love to words you're saying, things you're hearing, how you want to interact with people. That still can't actually truly be replicated in the same way. That needs to still be part of who we are. It becomes another tool to be better at what we are. I don't see it as being a replacement for the things that we do. And getting the best answers from prompt engineering is something, it's something that's a real talent, isn't it? Somebody told me a story the other day about Copilot that they've been using in their organization. So you use Copilot, we summarize the meeting, we work out what the actions were. Loads of people are doing it, makes sense, saves loads of time, and it's really cool. What if in a meeting you got Copilot to tell you which person in this virtual meeting is the person that's interacting the least? What are the things we could do to try and encourage that person to interact? How do we work out who's making more noise than perhaps everybody else and find a way to balance the conversation? I found that so powerful that instead of just help me write the minutes, it was help me be even more conscious of diversity on a meeting, to make sure that I'm appealing to everybody's input into the meeting. Really, really cool use case.
So let's look to the future. Where will we be in 5 years, by 2030? I mean, I hope I'll still be working, because marketers are first in the firing line of AI, but where will the world be on its AI journey?
I think this is the scary bit. This is when it does become scary, because I think the ability to predict has gone. Like we talk about, write a digital strategy for your organization that's got a 5-year window. There's no point. The stuff is moving so quickly and against a horizon that is really very difficult to predict, that I think all we can really say is AI will be part of what we're doing. We will be outsourcing work to agents, and they'll be helping us do better work. we will be competing with other organizations for skills, knowledge, capability in that field. The kind of big, broad brush strokes for 5 years from now, because I don't think anybody dare really say anymore where and what happens next with this stuff.
So you started off saying that it's the most exciting time to be living through in terms of being a CIO. Are you going to, how are you leading? How are you going to lead in the AI age? What's expected of you?
I think that's a really good question, because I think the expectation at the minute is to corral knowledge. It's to keep the enthusiasm there and find ways to keep us safe. So it's at one point I would have said a CIO's job was to be the most excited, to stand on the stage and get people to jump around and talk about the art of the possible. I think more and more it's about corralling the ideas and enthusing, but managing the output that comes from that and making sure the organization stays safe. That's still super exciting, because you're not the lone voice anymore. You've got a load of other people that are optimistic for the art of the possible with technology, rather than pessimistic because they've been here so many times before and seen so many things not actually get them over the line. So I think that's what's exciting, is it's less lonely in an AI world where that's at the center of innovation than it used to be. When I've got the chair of my digital board saying, I've bought these 2 books on AI, and he's sending me photos at the weekend of the books he's bought that he's reading, that's cool, I think, because I've got people who aren't technologists really wanting to know, I want to learn more, I want to understand your world and help you be successful in the world that you're responsible for.
So final question for the non-CIOs and tech people watching or listening, what's their first step, in this AI world? Like, what do they do first?
I mean, you could answer it really simply with try it. Literally go and get one of the apps, one of the ChatGPT or one of the other ones that are there, and try it and get it to do some fun stuff. Get it to help you with a thing that you wanted to do, a picture of, what do I look like as a dog, and add different characteristics. Or I'm collecting records, go and do me a list of all the records that I haven't got by Stevie Wonder so I can go and tick them off my list. Get it to do some stuff that is fun, meaningful, and then start to dig around with how you enhance that, evolve that, change that, use that, and bring it into places safely that you can reuse some of that. I think that's been really exciting to get people to start to think about how they can use it in that sort of way.
Well, Richard Corbridge, always a pleasure. Great to see you and to speak to you again, and continued success. And thank you so much for joining me on the AI6 podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.